Good morning. Namaste to each of you. Thank you for joining me this morning to honor your mind and your body and your spirit. Let's just take a moment or two to become present. Find a nice, comfortable seated position, either on a block or blanket, pillow, something that allows your spine and the back of your neck to sit nice and long and tall, opening up your chest, opening up your diaphragm, and opening up your heart. If you would kindly close your eyes and soften your thoughts, soften your eyes, soften your shoulders, and soften your heart. Observe your breath as it is, soft and gentle, breathing life into you with each inhale, and relaxation with each exhale. Feel the grace of being present, returning to that awareness again and again. You may open your eyes now. For this morning's intention, you may think of a positive word or a phrase to have with you on your mat, or perhaps carry with you throughout the day. This morning's intention I'd like to talk about is the third limb of the 8 limbs of yoga. The third limb is asanas. So most of us were introduced to yoga by taking a yoga class where we wiggled into and wiggled out of poses. These poses are asanas. We learned Tridasana, which is mountain pose, Uttanasana, which is forward fold, Virabhadrasana, which is warrior. There's 3 warriors. So asana is Sanskrit for seated, and the original asana was developed for meditation so the yogi could practice and be comfortable when seated within oneself, and that's the term they use, seated within oneself. An asana practice would be done before meditation to prepare the mind and body to be still for a long time, or it would be done to relieve your body after the meditation. Typically, and I fall in that category. If I do my meditation after a practice, then I get up from the meditation feeling very stiff. So I usually have to meditate first, then do the asana practice. So fast forward 100, even 1,000 years, and we Westerners in particular have extracted the asanas out of the 8 limbs of yoga and made it a standalone practice. And asana practice is now about keeping us mobile by inviting poses into our bodies that add to our flexibility, our strength, and our balance. So it's kind of a long ways from its original just seated within oneself asana. But let's look at where the asanas are placed in the 8 limbs of yoga. So again, it's the third limb of the 8 limbs after the yamas, the first limb, and the niyamas, the second limb. So the yamas, such as kindness and non-excess, and the niyamas, such as self-discipline and self-study, are important guidelines for your asana practice. Always lead with kindness. So let the pose serve you, not you serve the pose. So moving on to our pranayama, our breathing technique. There are many pranayamas that we've explored, and a lot of them are used off the mat, maybe for stress or for sleeping or exercise. But the Ujjayi breath, which means victorious in Sanskrit, is actually a great pranayama developed for the mat. It's really used well on the mat, and it's basically the soundtrack to your asana practice. So it is done on top, layered on top of your dirja, which is your complete breath, which goes from your stomach up to your ribs, up to your chest, that complete breath. So it's layered on top of that, and there's a sound to it. That's why I call it the soundtrack to your asana practice, because that sound, and Ujjayi breath is also known as ocean breath because of the sound that you make is ocean-like sound. But that really helps you to tune into where your breath is while you're doing your practice. It quiets the mind, it increases oxygen, and it slows the flow of breathing. So synchronizing your movements to this Ujjayi breath is the intention here. So the Ujjayi breath, as we know, is kind of that Darth Vader / fogging up a mirror thing. And it's done in the back of your throat or in the back of your nasal cavity, something that just releases a sound so that you can kind of gauge where your breath is. So if you take your hand and blow on it like you're fogging up a mirror, so that if you close your mouth, there's that sound. And again, with a Darth Vader, that's on the inhale. So Darth Vader with the mouth open. If you close your mouth, and during our practice, we should have our mouth closed and breathe through our nose. So again, that with your mouth closed is, I don't know if you can hear me. So let's just take a moment to kind of connect with that Ujjayi breath, taking deep inhales and exhales, finding that sound, that ocean sound in the back of our throat. Alrighty, well, let us begin our practice. So the basics of asanas, there's actually approximately 84 traditional yoga poses. And there's variations and modifications to those poses. I've used an app for many years called Yoga Studio, and they have taken it and broken down each pose, given you a description of how, written description, how to enter into the pose, how to exit from the pose, and they give you a picture of the person in the pose. They also, which I thought was interesting, classified the poses. So you can sort by focus, and the focus, as I mentioned earlier, our Western style of yoga practice now is all about mobility, our mobility. So it addresses the areas of flexibility, it addresses areas of strength, and addresses areas of balance. And there's also a fourth one, it's restorative. So those are the focuses that we'll do today, and I'll kind of point those out as we go along in each pose. And then there's the types. You can sort again by type. So there's the seated, there's standing, there's reclining, supine, or forward prone. And within those, the seated and the standing, there's twists and bends, and also inversions. So inversion is having your heart above your head. So if you happen to have any heart issues or cataract surgery or anything that you may want to be careful about that. And there's ways to modify those poses so that you don't get into the inversions. But inversions in general, if you're in good health, are really good for you. They help kind of shift your lymphatic system around and kind of basically turn you upside down so that you have a flushing sort of effect. And then lastly, they sort by ability, and there's beginner, intermediate, advanced, and then master. Master will never do, it's pretzel poses. Just maybe if I started back in my teens, I'd have a few master poses under my belt, but I started when I was 60, so I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. And my personal philosophy on it, if you have a consistent practice of beginner poses, you're going to achieve your goals of flexibility, balance, and strength with no problem. If you want just a little bit more challenge, throw in an intermediate pose every now and again, and we'll do that today. And advanced poses, we'll throw in one of those. So, and it's kind of a surprise which one it is that's an advance. But again, my feeling, beginner poses, you're going to achieve your goals. It's better to have a consistent, almost daily practice, if you will, with beginner poses than to come in like once a week or once a month and do an intermediate practice where you're maybe setting yourself up for injury. So that's my personal take on this. So I know I'm chatting a lot, so let's get going. Basic seated pose. Your spine is nice and long, back of your neck is nice and long. Again, this is the one that is the first asana, and it was so you could be seated within yourself. And it's a restorative pose. So the next one we'll do, we'll just take that restorative pose and just add some arm movement to it. So we'll do some seated sun breaths and practice our Ujjayi breath. So inhaling, we're going to raise our hands up overhead with a big Ujjayi inhale. Hear that sound in your voice. And then lower your hands slowly and gently. Again, listening for that breath. So it's kind of tuning up your instrument there. So inhale. And exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And why we want to pay attention to our breath, it's going to guide our practice to determine whether we're a little bit too far into a pose maybe, or maybe not enough. So we're going to listen to that flow of our breath. If it's nice and steady and strong, we're in a good place, that sweet spot. If it gets a little shallow and broken up, then we need to back off and find that nice even flowing sound again. So exhale. And we'll do one more. Keeping your hands at the top when they get there, and then we're going to twist our torso over to the left and bring our hands down. Right hand goes on the left kneecap, left hand behind the hips, and this adds flexibility. So the focus is on flexibility here. So you can see how our basic seated pose is now changed. It's still a beginner pose, but it is no longer a restorative pose. So inhale, we'll do a few back and forth, arms overhead, twist over to the left. Just create a nice even flow here with inhales, using our Ujjayi breath, floating over to the left side and down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Come back to center and bring both hands down alongside of you. So we're going to do some seated side stretches. So bringing your right fingertip to the mat and then bringing the left arm up along your left ear. We're going to bend our right elbow toward the mat and tip our torso over to the right. Again, this is a flexibility move, and it's a beginner move, so we'll come back up. We'll do that one more time. So arm alongside of your ear, fingertips on the mat, bring your right elbow down toward the mat and tip your torso over to the right. Listen to your Ujjayi breath. It might get a little shallow here. You may want to just kind of push back up till you get to that point where you can have that nice even flow of breath, and then back down. We're going to bring our right leg out. So it's out on a diagonal, our left foot's on the inner thigh, the right leg. We're going to do that same thing, but this is going to make it into an intermediate pose. So it's the seated revolve side stretch. There we go. So I like to do it with my right hand, the back of my right hand against my right knee, bringing the left arm up overhead. We're going to slide that hand down toward the foot, creating a nice bend over our leg. And listening to your Ujjayi breath, might be a little shallow here. And then we'll twist our torso and have our face facing our knee, our right kneecap. And then we'll slide our hands back up our leg. We'll come back to seated position. You may want to have your left leg out in front on this one. So we'll do that side stretch from a seated position first. Fingertips on the mat, right arm up along your ear, bending your left elbow toward the mat, tipping your torso over to the right. This is a flexibility pose. Listening for your Ujjayi breath, having a nice even flow. And then come back up. And then we'll do that one more time. Fingertips on the mat, elbow starts to reach toward the mat, tipping our torso over to the left. And then back up. Seated position, we're going to extend our left leg out at an angle. Sole of our right foot's along our thigh. Back of our left hand goes on the inner part of your left knee. Right arm goes up over head alongside your ear, and then we'll slide that left hand down toward our foot. And then twist our torso so we're facing our left knee. And you may see the difference between side and side. You may be a little closer or a little further away from your knee than on the other side. And then we'll slide our hands back up. We'll come up onto, oh, actually, no, we're going to roll down first. A lot I want to go over today, so I'm like, I have to kind of look at my notes. So we're roll down. You can have your knees bent or straight out. Just slowly, one vertebrae at a time, connect with the mat. We'll come into reclined mountain pose. So mountain pose in this position on your mat actually is a wonderful way of kind of giving yourself a model for when you're standing up. Notice, well, have your toes flexed so they're pointing up to the sky. So you're activating your whole body. Your legs are connecting to the mat in a nice straight way. You have that gentle bend in your knees. Your navel's tucked to the spine, bringing your lower back down to the mat. So that connects your spine and elongating the back of your neck with the mat. Shoulders are connecting to the mat. You can really feel your shoulder blades and rolling your shoulders back. You can really connect with that mat. So this is kind of your model for your standing mountain pose. So then we're going to slide our right foot up along the inner part of our left leg till it comes into a figure four. The right knee is pointing to the right side of the mat. Then we'll take that right ankle and place it on top of the left leg just above the kneecap. Again, we're still in figure four, coming into a reclined mountain pose. Reclined pigeon. And then we're going to bring that left foot up onto the mat. And the reclined pigeon pose is a strength pose. And I like to think of flexibility pose, but anytime you're working on your a pose that is considered strength, you're kind of working on your core area, this area around where your navel is. Give that area strength. So if you want from this position, you can work on guiding your right knee to the right side so it's pointing to the right side of the mat, and that might be fine for you today. It's a hip opener, so you get that nice expansive feeling in your hips, and that might be fine. Or you can bring it, and this is still actually considered a beginner's pose, bring your left leg up into the air, toes are pointing up to the sky. And if you interlace your fingers behind your left thigh, that is another part of reclined pigeon, another spot that you can stay. Or if you like a little bit more stretch, and this will bring it into more of an intermediate pose, is to guide that left leg toward your chest. So you really feel the stretch there. So you can see from, the figure four that we had on the mat to the first part of our reclined pigeon to this, there's a lot of options for you. And they're all hip openers. So then we're going to take our left foot and bring it back down to the mat, slide it down to the bottom of the mat, keeping our right ankle on our leg. And then we're going to take our right knee and guide it over to the left side of the mat. You use your left hand to guide it. And the right arm can be alongside you or in a goalpost, whatever's comfortable for you. And this is a flexibility pose here. And then we'll send our right foot down, come back into reclined mountain pose, and we'll do that on the other side. So sliding your left foot up along the inside of your right leg, coming into that figure four, and then bringing the left ankle on top of the right leg, right above the knee, bringing the right foot onto the mat. And again, you can stay here and work on maybe just opening up your hips a little more by guiding your left knee toward the left side of the mat, giving it a gentle guidance with your left hand. Or you can lift your right leg up, interlace your fingers behind your right thigh, flexing both toes up to the sky. Guide your right leg toward your chest. Flexibility and strength. And again, listen to your Ujjayi breath. You might have a little bit of shallowness if you're guiding your leg toward your chest. So back off a little bit, if you can get that even flow, listening to your Ujjayi breath. And then send that right foot back down to the mat. Slide it down to the end of the mat, keeping your left ankle on the right knee. And then we'll tip that left knee all the way over to the right side of the mat, guiding it with our right hand. Left arm can be alongside us or in a goal post. Just get that flexibility. Alrighty, and then we'll bring our legs back, bring them to your chest, interlace your fingers, give them a nice gentle hug. And then we can you can roll over to your side and come up. We're going to a tabletop position, or you can roll up by just tucking your hands underneath your knees, come to a seated position, crossing your legs, and then you're going to just kind of come over your legs and into the tabletop position. So with the tabletop position, this is actually a balance pose. And the balance is in having your weight evenly distributed between your hands, pushing down into your hands, having your shoulders balanced and away from your ears. Your legs, your knees are right below your hips, so you're balanced there. Back of your spine is nice and straight. You can tuck your navel to your spine, creating a nice flat back. So just again, check in. It's not balancing on one foot, but making sure that all parts of your body are balanced, that your shoulders are evenly away from your ears or away from the mat. Your hips are parallel to the mat. You're just overall have a nice balance and symmetry to your pose here. And then we will go into cat-cows. So this is a strength and flexibility pose. So we're going to inhale, actually exhale first, sorry. Exhale, rounding our back, dropping our tailbone and head down for cat. And then inhale, lifting our head and tailbone up, sending our gaze straight ahead for cow. Then we'll do that again. Exhale, rounding the back to cat. And then inhale, lifting your head up for cow. And this is one of my favorite poses, to really listen to that Ujjayi breath, really synchronize the movement with the breath. We'll just spend a few moments with your Ujjayi breath. Going from cat to cow. Flexibility and strength. And come back to tabletop. And we'll go into bird dog. So bring the knees together underneath your hips so that they're touching. Make sure your hands have your weight distributed evenly in them. Then we're going to send our right leg up to hip height. Again, really check in on your hands, have that balance in your hands. And then lift your left arm up. So this is actually considered a strength pose because you're really working on your core here, but it's also a balance pose. You can feel that vulnerability in your pose there for balance. So we're going to point our toes on an inhale, flex our toes toward the mat on the exhale, point, inhale, flex, 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 exhale, point, inhale, and flex, exhale, and bring that all back down, hands and knee back to the mat. Again, check in on your balance, weight distributed in your hands, nice and synchronized. And then we're going to lift our left leg up to hip height. Hips are parallel to the mat. Lift the left arm up. And then point to inhale, flex to exhale, point, inhale, flex, 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 exhale, point, inhale, and flex, exhale, and bring everything back down to the mat. Then we're going to kickstand our left foot outside of the mat, sending our right toes down to the bottom of the mat. Left shoulder is right above the left wrist. I'm going to sweep our hand all the way up to the ceiling, following our hand with our eyes, modified side plank, and then we'll bring it back down. So this is the strength pose. And if you'd like to, this is a beginner one. If you'd like to have a little bit more of a challenge, maybe make it into an intermediate, you sweep your hand up as you lift your back leg up, and then come back down again. So your choice. Inhale, sweeping up, applying your hand with your eyes, listening to your breath. Exhale, come back down. One more time, sweeping up, maybe lifting your leg up, and then come back down. Come back to tabletop, and we'll do that on the other side. So kickstand your right foot outside the mat. Send your left foot down to the bottom of the mat. Your right wrist will be right below your right shoulder. We'll sweep our left hand up. Nice big Ujjayi breath. Opening up your chest. And then sending it back down on the exhale. And then maybe this next time, sweeping it up, lifting your leg up to the sky. And then back down. Sweeping your hand up. And then back down. Nice even flow, listening to your breath. And then last time, sweeping your hand up, lifting your leg up. Listen to your breath, very different. And then back down. Come back to tabletop. And we're gonna tuck our toes under, walk our hands back, coming into squat pose. And squat pose is about strength. A lot of the leg strength, not so much core. However, if you want it to become more of a core strength, you can turn it into a balance pose by staying on your toes, maybe bringing your hands to your heart, Ujjayi, Anjali Mudra. And then we'll come up to mountain pose. So with mountain pose, this is a balance pose as well. And we did it in the recline. It was not a balance pose then, except for the fact that you, again, like with tabletop, you're getting all your points balanced on the mat, connected to the mat, evenly distributed. When you're in the regular mountain pose, it's more of a balance pose in what we literally think of as balance pose. And that came to, I'm like, really? But when I had my hair cut by my hairdresser, she would have me stand to cut my bangs. And of course, cutting my bangs, she said, close your eyes so you don't get the hair in your eyes. And if you stand here in mountain pose, close your eyes, you might feel that this isn't as stable as a pose. It's all about balancing, because you get a little wobbly. And she always had a problem cutting my bangs because I started wobbling a lot with my eyes shut. So it's balance in its true sense of the word. So again, put your toes toward the straight edge of your mat. Legs are nice, straight, strong, soft bend, navel tucked to the spine and back of your neck nice and straight and tall. Shoulders are relaxed and rolled back. Your chin is tucked a little bit toward your chest to create that nice long spine in the back. The crown of your head is reaching up toward the sky. So we'll sweep our hands up overhead, big inhale, exhale, coming down, bending our knees as we go, bringing our hands to the mat. Forward fold are flexibility moves. So then we'll inhale, bring our hands to our shins, flattening out our back, half forward fold, getting that nice straight spine, gazes straight down. And then dropping the crown of our head down toward the mat. This is strength and flexibility. And then sweeping our hands all the way up overhead. We'll come up onto our tippy toes into a balance pose, which is palm tree. Now just kind of wave our hands here, pretending we're a palm tree swaying in the wind. And that will help with our balance, make our feet nice and strong. And then lowering our feet back down to the mat, sending our hands back down to the mat, to the floor. Forward fold, bending your knees as you go. Inhale, half forward fold, hands to your shins. Spine is nice and long. And then crown of your head drops down toward the floor. Then inhale, sweeping your hands all the way up overhead. Palms come together. We'll do some supported side stretches. So again, this would be flexibility. We bring our right hand down to our right thigh and slide that down toward our knee, tipping our torso over to the right. Key in on your Ujjayi breath here. And then lift the right hand back up overhead, dropping the left hand to the thigh, sliding that hand down toward your left knee, tipping over to the left. Again, listen to your Ujjayi breath. And then coming back up. One more time on each side. Right hand comes down, sliding your hand down toward your knee. And then coming back up. And last time on the left, slide it down toward your knee, tipping your torso to the left. Listening to your breath. And then back up overhead. Both hands come back down to the mat, back down to the floor, bending your knees as you go. Inhale, half forward fold. Exhale, crown of your head comes down toward the mat. And then sweeping our hands all the way up overhead again. And we're going to bring our hands to the front. I'm going to drop, probably best on the side, drop our hips down toward the mat, coming into chair pose. So tucking your navel to the spine, activating that core strength, coming into the chair pose. Trying to get your legs, the tops of your thighs, a little parallel with the mat. Keeping your knees behind your toes. And then lifting your hands all the way up to the sky. We'll do that one more time. So slowly lowering the hands, lowering the hips toward the mat, keeping your knees behind your toes, coming like you're sitting in a chair. Maybe come down a little bit more. Key here is tucking your navel to your spine, activating that core strength. And then back up again. And then we'll bring our hands down to the backs of our hips. Fingertips are pointing down. Our feet are about hip width apart. Shoulders are relaxed and rolled back. The chin is tucked toward your chest. And then we'll just drop our shoulders back, coming into a supported back bend. This is flexibility. But I know there's some strength in there too. And then coming back up straight. Well done, everyone. Alrighty. We're back to mountain pose. We'll sweep our hands up overhead. And then coming down, bring our hands all the way down to the mat. And then send just the right foot back, coming into runner's lunge. Runner's lunge is a strength move. And then this can also be, it's considered actually a standing pose as well. So as I mentioned earlier, you could do seated poses, standing pose, and add a little different element like a twist or a bend to it. So let's add a twist to this. We're going to sweep our left hand up to the sky. And then back down again. We're going to bring that left foot back to the right foot, coming into plank pose. And with plank pose, that's a total strength pose, really working on your core here. Your hands have your weight distributed evenly, like tabletop. Shoulders are right above the wrists. Heels are pushing to the back of the mat. Navel tucked to the spine. And we'll come down, knees first. And then bending the elbows, keeping them close to the ribs. Come down, chest second, and then chin. Coming down, keeping our hands underneath, Our shoulders will come up into Cobra. Cobra is a flexibility move, lifting our chest and chin up. And then pushing all the way up and lowering our hips into child's pose. Extended child's pose with our arms out in front. This is for flexibility. And it's often used as a restorative. Oftentimes, it's suggested that if you need a break in your practice, to come into child's pose. So your arms are extended out front or maybe alongside of you, can be a restorative pose as well. And then we'll come up back into tabletop, tucking our toes under. We'll come up, lifting our hips up to the sky into downward dog. And this is an inversion where your head is below your heart. So just be aware if you have any medical situations. You know, the plank pose would be an alternative to a downward dog. And then we'll just kind of walk out our feet, pedaling as we go. This is a strength pose. And then we'll slowly walk our feet to our hands, coming into forward fold, and then slowly coming back up into mountain, hands overhead, hands to heart center. Then we'll turn to the right side of the mat and come into a wide-legged stance. And oftentimes we have our toes pointing out to the corners. This time we're going to have them tucked in ever so slightly, a little bit pigeon-toed. Our heels are going to extend out a little bit. And we're going to have our legs nice and strong, but with a gentle bend in our knees. And we'll tip our torso forward. And if you have a block or longer arms than I do, this is a nice, where are we? Flexibility move. So we're going to take our right hand and sweep it up to the sky. And then back down. And take our left hand, sweep that up to the sky. And then back down. And then take the crown of our head, reach it down toward the mat, and walk our hands over to the right foot, sending our gaze to our kneecap. And then sending it over to the left foot, sending our gaze to the kneecap. So we just took that one pose, that was a beginner pose, and made it into an intermediate pose. Then we're going to bend our knees, bring our hands to our hips, bring our torso upright, and then pivot our feet, pointing our toes to the left, coming into warrior two. So warrior two, our left knee is above our left ankle. You just see our top of our toes. Back foot is nice and snug, back edge into the mat. We'll bring our arms up to shoulder height, send our gaze to our left fingertips. And there's 3 warrior poses. Here are Asanas. There's warrior 1, which is about flexibility. Warrior 2, which is what we're in. It's about strength. And warrior 3 is about balance. So this is my favorite pose. I feel the strength physically, and these asanas are about addressing physical strength, flexibility, and balance. But You can also adopt those focuses of flexibility, strength, and balance for your mind. Having a flexible mind, having balanced thoughts, having strong, having your mind be strong to persevere, and also for your spirit, having a balanced spirit, having a strong spirit, having a flexible spirit. I have a friend whose mantra is flexibility, and that seems to get her through a lot of situations. It's, if you take a hard, strong stance, you're kind of pounding against things. But if you're flexible, you can go with the flow. And that's what her mantra is all about, going with the flow. So we're going to straighten out our left leg, send our right hand forward, tipping it down toward our leg, coming into triangle pose. And this is about balance. So instead of doing warrior 3, we're doing the triangle pose. And then come back up to warrior 2. We'll drop our hands down, bring our feet together. You can scooch them together, just bring them together. And we'll do tree pose. So starting on your left foot being ground into the mat, think about, first of all, think about the balance of mountain pose. You have your feet secure in the mat, legs are nice, straight and strong, navel's tucked to the spine, the shoulders are rolled back. Those are all elements that's needed in tree pose. So then really focus on that connection of your left foot to the mat. You bring your right leg up, finding that balance. And you can stay here if you like, or if you like to have your toes on the mat, heel against your ankle on the left leg. That's one part of doing tree pose. Or you can slide it up to your calf. That's another version of tree pose. Or you can bring it all the way up to your thigh. And that's another version of tree pose. Of course, this would be a balance pose. I think it's the most classic balance pose in yoga. Maybe this in dancer. I'm really feeling that those elements of mountain where you're stable and secure and still, but in a different variation, adding balance to it. So let's release that and do that on the other side. So sweeping our hands up overhead, big inhale, exhale, bringing your hands down to the mat. Send our left foot to the back of the mat. Into runner's lunge, sweeping our right hand up to the sky for a twist. And then back down again. We'll send our right foot back to meet our left foot, coming into plank pose. Our wrists are right below our shoulders. Feet, heels are pushing toward the back of the mat. Navel's tucked to the spine. This time we're going to do chaturanga. So keeping our elbows tucked toward our ribs. We're going to come lower our torso down to the mat slowly with control. And believe it or not, that's the advanced pose. So that we often do that, but it's considered an advanced pose. Hands are right below our shoulders. We'll lift our chin and then our chest, gently pushing in, coming into cobra. And then pushing up to tabletop and lowering our hips down to child's pose. flexibility, and can be used for restorative. And then coming back up to tabletop, tuck our toes under, lift our hips up to downward dog. So strength pose, your arms are getting strong, legs are strong, navel's tucked to the spine, your core is getting strong. Again, it's an inversion, so you may want to be careful here. Maybe substitute the plank pose instead. And then walk your feet up to your hands, coming into forward fold. Sweep your hands all the way up overhead. Palms come together, palms come to heart center. And then we'll turn to the side again, coming into wide-legged stance. Again, with our heels just out a little bit, toes tucked in like a bit of a pigeon toe. And then bending our knees gently, hands at the waist. We'll pivot our torso so it's facing down, kind of like a half forward fold. And then bringing our hands down to either a block or to the floor. We'll sweep our right hand up to the sky and then back down. Sweep our left hand up to the sky and back down. And then dropping the crown of our head down, again going into inversion. Walk our hands over to our right foot, connecting our glance, our gaze at our knee, and then walking our hands over to our left foot, low knee, and then walking back to center, bending our knees, bringing our hands back to our waist, bringing our torso straight up, and then we'll come into warrior two by pivoting our feet to the right. So right foot is pointing to the edge of the mat. Right knees over the right ankle. Back foot's nice and snug. Sweeping our hands up toward, up at shoulder height rather, and sending our gaze to our right fingertips. Feeling that strength of the physicality of this pose, but also the strength in mind and spirit. And we'll straighten out our right leg, sending our right fingertips forward. Bring our right hand down to our leg, coming into triangle pose. Maybe sending your gaze up to your left hand. It's a balance pose. There's a lot of strength there too. And then coming back up to warrior two. Then sending our arms down and walking our feet back together again, coming into tree pose. In your version of tree pose, this time we'll do that with the right foot. But again, first embody all the cues of mountain pose. And then we'll lift our left leg up, finding that balance, finding the stability. And then you can bring your toe to the mat, ankle to your heel, or slide it up to your shin, or slide it up to your thigh. Bringing your hands together. And just trying to absorb the stillness in this pose. Alrighty, when we release that, toes come to the edge of the mat. Heels are tucked in. Our hands come to Anjali Mudra right in front of our heart. And we'll slowly lower our hips down toward the mat. This is a strength pose. You feel it in your legs and in your core. Your arms come to the inner part of your knees. Hands slide down toward the mat for a little bit more stretch. And then we'll bring our sit bones down onto the mat. We come into staff pose. Staff is, we said there's standing and seated poses. This is the ultimate seating pose, or seated pose, where your toes are flexed up to the sky. You really feel your sit bones in the mat. You can push down your knuckles, lifting your hips up and then back down on the mat. Spine is nice and straight, creating this nice L shape. So it's strength that you're working on here. Then we'll bring our left foot on the outer part of our right leg. So it's on the mat, right next to the outside of our right knee. And then we wrap our right arm around our left knee, sending our left fingertips behind us for a nice twist, sage pose. So then we'll have that sage pose, or staff pose rather, and then adding the sage pose to it, it just amps it up a little bit. And then come back to staff pose. We'll do that on the other side. Bring your right foot to the outer part of your left knee on the mat, wrapping your left arm around your right knee. Right fingertips go behind your hips, twisting your torso to the right. So strength and flexibility. And then come back and roll down on your back. So you do that express method, tucking your hands underneath and just rolling back, bringing your knees to your chest, give them a nice hug. So knees to chest pose is just the opposite of child's pose. It's the same pose, only on your back instead on your legs. So it's a nice alternative. It's a flexible pose, but again, can be used for restorative purposes. We're going to bring our arms out to our sides at shoulder height. And then exhale, gently dropping our knees to the right for reclining twist. And again, flexibility. Sending our head to the left, look at our left fingertips. And then gently turn your head back to center. Inhale, lift your legs back to center. And exhale, lower your legs to the left side. And then gently turn your head to the right. Look at your right fingertips. And then gently turn your head back to center. Inhale, lifting your legs back up to center and then lowering them down to the bottom of the mat. And prepare for Shavasana. And Shavasana is an actual pose. It's a restorative pose. And its sole intention is that we are to release and relax our muscles, our bones, our connective tissue, and just let the juices kind of flow back in, kind of like when they say when on a recipe to when you're cooking protein, to let it rest for 5 to 10 minutes. So all the juices come back. So that's what we're doing. We had an active workout, and we just need to have our body relax and kind of balance itself back out. So feet go to the corners of the mat. Arms are out to the side, palms facing up. Shoulders are really, really relaxed into the mat. You can take a few deep breaths, really releasing on the exhale. And typically a Shavasana pose is held for 5 to 10 minutes. There's kind of a rule of thumb of for 5 minutes for every 60 minutes of your more vigorous asana workout. So again, there's 5 minutes to 60 minutes. We do maybe about 40 minutes. So I typically have you go into Shavasana and then read a poem, and that's about 3 minutes, I think. So let me get to my poem. So the poem I have for you today, appropriate for the weather, it's To the Thawing Wind by Robert Frost. Come with rain, O loud southwester, bring the singer, bring the nester. Give the buried flower a dream, make the settled snowbank steam. Find the brown beneath the white, but whatever you do tonight, bathe my window, make it flow, melt it as the ice will go. Melt the glass and leave the sticks like a hermit's crucifix. Burst into my narrow stall, swing the pitcher on the wall, run the rattling pages o'er, scatter poems on the floor, and turn the poet out of door.